Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fall River Housing Authority meeting. It was the postponed regular session. It's Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, and it's 4:30 p.m. Attorney Souza, the open meeting law, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The required language for the open meeting law is as follows. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha, roll call.
Chairwoman Sahadi.
Here.
Vice Chairman Underhill.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Bentley.
Here.
Commissioner Medeiros.
Here.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening is citizens' input. I see none. Second item is residents' input. Any input?
All set.
All set, seeing none. Item 2 is the minutes of the regular meeting held on September 12th, 2022. The recommended action is to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 is bills and communications. The vouchers are in your packet. The recommended action is to accept the vouchers as presented.
Motion to accept. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 are the management reports. In your packet is the applications report, the occupancy report, the tenants' accounts receivable report, the work order report. Number 5 is the monthly Section 8 vouchers activity report. 6 is the monthly personnel count report. 7 is the Director of Modernization monthly report. And 8 is the bank investment and bond debt balance report. Do I have a motion to accept these reports?
Motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Any questions regarding these reports as presented? Hearing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 5 is the financial reports from the Director of Finance. It's the monthly financial report for the month of June. That was not available at the time, so it's on your table, I believe.
Yes. But it's actually July.
Oh, and it's actually July, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, we didn't know until today.
Do I have a motion to approve the July monthly reports? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions with regard to these reports? You have the operating statement and various other reports included in your packet. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 6 is an update from the Executive Director.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. A few things to mention. Included in your packet will be a drug and alcohol policy as well as a vehicle policy for your review and or approval. This was given some months ago. We were collaborating with the union to get their input. 2 of the 3 units approved the drug and alcohol policy. The vehicle policy kind of went back and forth. Attorney Souza had put that together, feels that it's a solid policy, and we want to move forward and make these 2 policies Fall River Housing Authority policies and not just union policies that would represent all employees, all units and non-union as well. So you'll see that a little bit later on in the packet. Also, you'll see a consent order from the Department of Public Utilities, many housing authorities across the state of Massachusetts, as well as some large apartment complexes that don't have individually gas metered to each unit, are kind of considered purveyors of gas and have to comply with a safety plan that the Department of Public Utilities is outlining in the consent order. So we did sign the consent order, and that gives us 180 days to put together a safety plan. And in your packet is a little more detail on that as well. We had a REAC inspection earlier in the month for Father DeFerrio Village. Unfortunately, we went down 3 points. There were a few items that were not picked up on ever in the past by previous inspectors. One being the security screens that protect the tenant selection offices for vandalism. And they inspected that and felt that the screens didn't open properly, and we lost a few points on that. Earlier, or late last month, myself, Tim McCoy, met with Chief Gorvin and Mr. Resendes just to discuss the housing authority sites, safety and security at our sites, the contract that you'll vote on tonight. It was a very productive meeting, positive dialogue. And then later that week, two of the commissioners, Commissioner Medeiros, Commissioner Underhill, myself, Deb Morissette, we also met with the housing unit, and I believe Commissioner Medeiros had sent out an email reassuring everyone that it was a positive meeting, and a lot of questions were answered at that time. We do have a signed memorandum of understanding for Unit A, which is clerical. And the last thing I have, we had a very nice dedication at Cardinal Medeiros Towers. We dedicated a garden in memory of Bill King, former Joint Tenants Council director. So it was a good turnout, it was a nice day, and it was a good event to honor his memory. That's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is new business. Item 1 is modernization. A is a certificate of final completion for tree removal and building repairs at Chair Bishop Eade Apartments. The recommended action is approval of the final completion. Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of final completion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
B is a change order number 1 for the gazebo at Oak Village. Change order number 1 is an increase in the project duration of 63 days due to a manufacturing of the gazebo. The recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is certificate of substantial completion for the gazebo at Oak Village. The recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item D is certificate of completion, consolidated for the gazebo at Oak Village. Recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item E is a change order number 1 for the smoke alarm replacement project at Sunset Hill. Change order number 1 is an increase of $2,390.58 to the contract for the installation of 29 additional smoke detectors. The recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions with regard to this change order? All in favor?
Aye.
Item F is a certificate of substantial completion for the EMG fire pump replacement at your Bishop Eade Apartments. The recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item G is a certificate of final completion for the EMG fire pump replacement at your Bishop Eade Apartments. Recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item H is certificate of completion consolidated for the roof replacement Phase 4 at buildings 14, 19, and the administrative building at Sunset Hill. The recommended action is approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 on the agenda is the miscellaneous. 2A is the supplemental police service contract. The recommended action is continuation of the contract for 1-year period beginning October 1, 2022 to September 30, 2023 for 5 officers in the amount not to exceed $410,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions?
Not any questions, just comments. I did ask that that was tabled just so that my colleague here, both of them, could ask some questions and go through the process. I'm told it was very helpful and appreciative of, obviously, the work of our police and you know, the answers and you know, attention that they gave both my colleagues in that meeting. So I appreciate it, and I'll be supporting it.
Excellent. All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Item B is the vehicle use policy. This is the policy that our director just spoke about. It's included in our packet. The recommended action is discussion and approval. Do I have a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second. Okay. Questions, please, or discussion?
This was not yet in an agreement with the union, right? Discussed, volleyed back and forth, but not
The
to
vehicle, correct. That's correct.
Do we have a sense if we're close to an agreement? I obviously would prefer that everybody gets on the same page. Or do we feel like it's not?
Well, it was kicked back, saying that they had questions on it that they wanted to run by their legal department. I gave them this in May. It's a pretty straightforward, kind of boilerplate vehicle policy that Attorney Souza put together by researching other vehicle policies. It's not that difficult. It's a common sense policy. We don't have a policy. We know we've had some issues with employees and vehicles in the past. I just felt that we should have a policy in place. I tried to incorporate their thoughts, but I mean, what do? We give them 2 more months, 3 more months? That's a vehicle policy.
So I have a question in reviewing the policy. It seems very logical in terms of people who use vehicles taking the necessary responsibilities for them. But are there any instances where there's shared vehicles amongst a couple of people? So if someone were to damage it and then the next person takes it, not realizing that the previous person had damaged it, like where there's some way to safeguard that situation? Because I know in the language it says you damage a vehicle, you're expected to take responsibility. It could end in termination. So I was just
Well,
curious.
The only time, not the only time, but most of the time that occurs is our second shift. So for the days, one staff member will have that truck, and then the days they're off, the other staff member will have that same truck. So you could get a gray area there, but we would hope that our staff are responsible. If I'm driving it and I banged into something, I would report it and say, hey, Jack, that was on me, and it's reported to the Director of Facilities.
Yeah, sure, and if everybody is honest and forthright, then that doesn't present a problem, but if someone doesn't, and the next person takes the vehicle, realizes it a day later, and then becomes, wait a minute, oh wait, but you've had it for a day, that could have been you that did, I just didn't know if there was a way to clarify or safeguard against those types of situations. I guess it doesn't necessarily exist when it's a dedicated person driving their vehicle all the time.
Commissioner, if I could add something, at the facility particularly, it mostly, predominantly would occur in a second shift situation, right? When you have two folks and there may be someone whose weekend it is and whatnot. I can tell you this, my experience from being at the warehouse, that second shift individual who's coming on at 4 o'clock will typically do an inspection of the truck.
Okay, so there is some procedure.
And if there's an issue on there, and I'm sure our Director of Facilities could elaborate, but we have had an instance in the past where we said, hey, I'm noticing a ding here and whatnot, before I go out on the shift. I haven't seen that before. I mean, obviously, the other driver would be confronted. I mean, if the other driver is saying he also has no knowledge of it, it could have been backed in. I mean, you can't jump to a situation and impose discipline when obviously you can't prove that the other driver had knowledge or was at fault of this incident or whatever. But typically, the driver of a shared vehicle does an inspection before they take the vehicle. So
Okay.
again, they take position and start on their shift. So again, I know we've had a situation at some point in the last, I believe, 2 years where we had that exact situation, and Mr. Majewski was notified. Now, again, I mean, there was no discipline invoked anywhere, because, I mean, how can you ultimately prove? But I think there's an expectation of when there's some sort of you put some sort of a ding in an asset, that you should be required to tell you tell your supervisor, you put the attorney on notice, and so we let our insurance company know, whatever. I don't know if you'd like Mr. Majewski to elaborate.
I can give you a couple, for instance.
Yeah, sure.
So on the second shift, we have a camera centralized, 2 of them in the shop. If there is anything that would happen when one person is leaving, the other person's coming in, we can always check the cameras to see if the physical damage on the vehicle happened during that shift. That's usually the easiest way to do it. We've had one instance at our shop that we actually thought somebody had damaged one of our warehouseman's cars, and using the cameras, it was actually a reflection off of somebody where he lives. That's a mirror on a car. If you've seen it on houses, it's actually melting vinyl siding on houses, and it's reflections off of it, and he thought somebody actually hit his car, and it's actually plastic parts on his car that is actually getting melted by a reflection where he parks his car at his house. And the camera showed, because the day that he pulled in, he said, somebody damaged my car in the parking lot. It was not on the street, it was in our parking lot. But we were lucky enough to have camera footage. It was there when he pulled it in the morning. He just didn't realize it. So that we depend on the cameras a lot to
Okay.
actually research that. We would never do it if we could, as Tim said, if we can't prove it, then that's a different story. Somebody could hit run wherever.
Yeah.
But usually on the second shift, we only have the 2 guys that are on shift running that truck. We use a separate truck for anybody that fills in on say for overtime.
Okay.
The new truck is only used by the 2 guys on second shift.
If I could too, Commissioner, I think the meat and potatoes of the policy is if someone were to get into an accident, how it's going to be reported. We certainly don't want anybody using our vehicles that may be under the influence, driving recklessly, smoking in our vehicles. We never had a policy, so we just tried to put something together, and I think Attorney Souza just put a lot of common sense into it. And Commissioner Burns, I agree, and I tried to, for months, reach out, but when you just, how long do we go back and forth with language that they want to put in, where I think we can impose our own policy anyway. I don't need the buy-in of the union. I tried to have them collaborate with us on it, but it's 5 months now. So I'm not trying to discount what they want to put in, but at some point, we just have to say, hey, you had 5 months to add what you wanted to it, but to say that, oh, we want to run it by our legal team or legal.
That's a quick phone call. So I've been involved in negotiations once or twice, and if you need information, you can get it fairly quickly. 5 months seems like enough time, so.
So, but whatever your pleasure is, if you want me to reach out to them further and give them more time, or?
I mean, it sounds like you've done your part. I just had to acknowledge that obviously my best case scenario is that we're finding a collectively bargained. The only thing I would add is maybe that, the cameras are great, but you jog something in my brain that doesn't happen often, but maybe there is something where we have a form that is either a daily, weekly, monthly vehicle check that could help us with regular maintenance, but it also could play into this. It would protect the employee and it would protect the employer, where you're kind of signing off saying, hey, my vehicle is clear of any, obvious signs of, so I don't know, just a thought, but I think that could protect all parties, so.
It's made it very, excuse me, Kevin, but it's made it very easy to keep only the second shift employed guys in that truck. Everybody else uses another van that we have. If
Okay.
it comes to shifts that is not new, and it's already quite banged up.
Yeah.
That's not our intention. The intention was to keep the second shift truck pristine and
Yeah.
it's running and not banged up as long as possible. And those two guys are the responsible parties of it, which helps out substantially.
Can I just add as well that we did, excuse me, Mr. Spardella did receive a red line copy from the union. We had gone through it the last time as we had tried to see what their receptiveness to the policy would be. And there were changes that were proposed that they redlined. I reviewed them with Mr. Spardella, and I believe Tim McCoy was there as well. But if the changes were reasonable, we did consider and made the changes. If they were not reasonable, I mean, I'm writing this on behalf of the Housing Authority as general counsel. So, and I just wanted you to know that there was that interaction with them, and then we gave that finalized copy that you're receiving tonight to them so that they reviewed it, and I haven't heard back from them. And also, we received several different vehicle policies from, they were forwarded to me very courteously through other individuals, and I was able to look through those, and we're on target with it.
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty straightforward policy. I can support it, I just wanted to say that.
I just look at it.
I'd love everybody to be on
Yeah.
the same page, pulling on the same end of the road, that's all.
Anyone else? I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is the drug and alcohol testing policy. The recommended action is discussion/approval. Do I have a motion?
Motion to discuss and approve?
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion on this item?
In my various roles, I have been involved with testing. I was shocked to learn how creative some people could be throughout this process. So I would, if you have any questions down the line, with whatever working or not working, I would love to offer some insight if I have it. And also, it's not just about testing, so if somebody has a problem, I want to be able to, wrap our arms around the employee and make sure they get the help that they need, and I could help with that too. So as long as, that's all part of the conversation, I'm, cognizant, they agree to it, I agree to it, but there's a lot
So-
changes when you go through it. So.
The union for Unit C and B approved of this. We're still waiting on Unit A, and then obviously this would cover non-union employees as well. And to your point, prior to even having a policy, we had someone where we had a situation, we imposed discipline, but first and foremost, Tim Burke, we reached out with how we can help in any way. That's always, get them healthy is more important than the job, get them the help they need. Obviously, if it were to continue, at some point, you know, you make a decision with a staff member, but always to assist, to help, support in any way, never to pile on by adding more stress in their life by them losing their job or.
Sometimes discipline is support, so I'm not saying there can't be discipline, I'm just, I don't want to forget support, that's all. So I'm glad that
Absolutely.
we won't, and I can support the policy, it's been agreed upon, and I appreciate it. I think, you know, it's a good policy.
Excellent. We have a first and a second. All in favor for the drug and alcohol testing policy?
Aye.
Thank you. Item D is the Department of Public Utilities consent order. Director Spadella, you spoke of this briefly.
So yes, spoke a little bit about this again. The state of Massachusetts is now enforcing some of these federal regulations, and many housing authorities across the state are impacted by this, as well as some large private landlords. The short of it is, if you don't have individual gas meters for each unit, you're kind of considered a purveyor of gas, so you have to have some sort of safety plan in place. We were working with the officials from DHCD. They were more engaged. Our HUD officials, not so much, but in review, they recommended, as well as DHCD, that we sign the consent order, of course reviewed by our general counsel. So I did sign that consent order. Once I did, it allowed us 180 days to put together a safety plan. Mr. Majewski, our Director of Facilities, has been in contact with Liberty Utilities, engineers over there, and we're working diligently to put a safety plan together that will get submitted to the DPU and hopefully accepted, and we'll have a plan in place.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions with regard to the consent order?
I do. Would this plan require additional personnel, or is it something that's just a procedures type?
So, I don't believe it will require additional personnel on our end, because we don't have anybody internally that would have the expertise of testing or repairing gas lines. What we're hoping, I believe, is to treat this like some of the other services that we receive, where we go out to bid and we have a vendor under contract, and Ed is working with engineers to put together a scope of work, so to meet the state and federal requirements, whether that be testing yearly or biannual, repair work. I'm still a little ignorant on exactly what they want. They don't give you a whole lot of details initially. They just kind of bully you into sign this, and then we'll give you 180 days. So kind of one of those things. You got to sign it, and then you can read it later. So, but based on the recommendation from DHCD, HUD, our general counsel, myself, we felt that, and speaking with other housing authorities, that mostly all of them signed it. We got on board as well, and we did that. So we'll know more as time goes on. Ed will be able to fill us in on how he's making progress with the engineering.
Thank you. Any other questions? Moving on to item E, Section 8, Payment Standards. It's effective for December 1st, 2022. The recommended action is approval. Do I have a motion to accept the payment standards for Section 8?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions with regard to this payment standards? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 3 is personnel. You have in your packet a purchasing agent position. The recommended action is to approve the job description and provide permission to post in-house.
Motion to approve the job description and permission to post in-house.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Director, would you like to describe this position,
So the
since I needed description before?
purchasing agent position is not anything new to the Housing Authority. It's just, it went away the past 10-plus years. The Housing Authority always had a purchasing agent and procurement responsibilities, which is different than a purchasing agent. Was always, the deputy director was always tasked with those responsibilities. In the past, Mr. McDonald would handle that, and we had a couple of purchasing agents. A new administration came on, decided to eliminate the purchasing agent position and create a procurement officer position. Hired someone previous to Mr. McCoy. That person left. Mr. McCoy was hired. What we're looking to do is kind of revert back to past practice. The procurement officer will remain, but it will be vacant, and we will go back and create, if you will, or bring back a purchasing agent position. And we'll keep the procurement duties streamlined with the deputy, and I believe it will be a substantial savings to the Housing Authority with this model, reverting back somewhat.
Thank you. Any questions for the director? All in favor for approval of the job description and the permission to post in-house the purchasing agent position?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B is the union negotiation update with Unit A. This is anticipated executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating positions of the public body, and the chair so declares. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion to go into executive session.
Second.
The chair
Martha, roll call.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Just declare that it has a detrimental.
And the chair so declares. I did say that.
I missed it, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Commissioner Bentley?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Maderas?
Yes?
Chairwoman Sahadi?
Yes. At this time, we will be going into executive session. We do not anticipate coming back into open session, so this will be the end of our Housing Authority meeting this evening.